My name is Judy Towers. As you can tell, Subversion and Espionage is directed against you. I'm a prior Army counterintelligence agent, and this is a deviation from the presentation I used to give that was called S.A.E.D.Y, Subversion and Espionage directed against the Army. Now, for how many of you are willing to admit you've been in the military? Hooah! All right, how many of you are willing to admit you're in the Army? Oh, dang, none of you. Okay, hooah! I was in the Army by myself, apparently. But we had to give this briefing. I had to give the briefing every week to incoming soldiers into the unit, and it was a briefing that they had to get every year. We also covered terrorism. I'm not going to cover terrorism. That's not the issue. So this is a movie called Bridge of Spies. It's a very good movie. It's a true story. These things did happen. I've been at the bridge where we exchanged spies from one country to another between, when the wall was up. I was during the Cold War. I was stationed in Germany for many years. So that kind of brings back memories to me. And here's the cool pictures to keep you interested. James Bond. This is not what we did in the Army. I was not trained to do any of this. Not like that, no. And no, I've never, no. And no. So anyway, so what got me started on this is I went to DerbyCon for the last 2 years, and I went to the social engineering village, see what it's like, right? What are you guys talking about? What's going on? And they started talking. We had an impromptu conversation, and the pen testers were talking about, what do I do when the person that I use to get into the facility gets fired the next day because of what I did? They had some remorse, and but I'm doing my job, and unfortunately they didn't do theirs, and then the company fires them the next day. And that happened to a bank employee, and what he was talking about was that he had to get into the server room. That was the goal of pen test, get into the server room. And so he decided to go out to one of the branches, and he watched all the employees walking in. And he scoped them out by their personality and knew which one I'm going to go talk to when I go inside. So he scoped her out, figured it out. He's dressed in just like you are, khakis, nice shirt. And he goes in, and so he goes, I want to open an account. Can you help me? He's like, sure, come over here, we'll help you out. So they started working, and he goes, I need to go to the bathroom. Can we take a break? She's like, yeah, it's down the hall. Come get me when you're done. When he came out of the bathroom, there was an empty office right across from it. He walks in there, sits down, starts his hack, right? And so I guess he'd been sitting there about an hour when other people had seen him sitting there, and they thought he was just a visiting employee. Didn't approach him, didn't ask anything of him. The bank manager came by and was like, what are you doing? I don't recognize you. What's going on? And that's when they realized there was a pen test going on. And they, turned him in. Well, what he found out the next day, the teller that he first approached and scoped out, they fired her. That pissed me off. She wasn't trained right, and you fired the employee whose personality that you hired to do that job was to be outspoken, customer-focused. Everybody is friendly. Everybody is nice. I need to help you. I need to do the right thing for you. But you fired her for the very things that you hired her for. So I kind of got a little peeved when I saw that, and it kind of like, all right, this is, they're using things that, things I was trained to do as a counterintelligence agent, approaching people, talk to them, whatever. So then the next year happened, and I went to the same village, and they had a panel of pen testers. We could ask them questions, men and women. And they asked, one of them was, how far will you go to win your pen test? I think it is a game. Us against you. All right, I'm not an us, I'm not a pen tester. Pen tester against me, whatever. And one of the gentlemen, young man, he goes, I will go whatever. Look at me. I will swing both ways. He goes, nobody can say no to this. I'm like, wow. Whoa. So I was driving home, and I realized this is why I was a counterintelligence agent in the Army. This is why I'm in cyber now. It's the person behind the keyboard. What you are facing is a determined not just pen tester, you are facing an adversary. You are facing a nation state, and they are not above. I'll give you another story that should make you upset. But they are not above using you and your personality and your weaknesses against you, and it is you by yourself. You, just because you work for the company you work for is why you were targeted. But they sat there and they studied you. And they studied your Facebook page, and they studied whatever personal social media you had. And I'll tell you the other story that really egged me on. And so this is what I wanted you guys to realize, is that you are by yourself. You might work for a company, but when it comes down to this, they're approaching you on your own. They're using you and your personality and your weaknesses, as they call them, traits that you have, and they'll use them against you. And this is something that I read last year that also kind of egged me on. Instead of security awareness, that's a compliance issue. You get it once a year, you get an hour of it. Then you go back, the normal person goes back to their job and they do their day in, day out grind, right? But unless you're an InfoSec, right, how many of your domain admins are willing to admit it? Okay. Target, right? You did. No, I'm talking. But yes, you are the target. You have got the keys to the kingdom. So, yeah. So, but this is what I like, the behavioral InfoSec. We need to change people's behaviors. I don't want to make you security aware, because how many times are you still clicking on the attachment? How many times are you still going out to mom and pop's gardening center and downloading malware or ransomware on your system? You're not paying attention. The normal user is not paying attention because their full-time job is to do something else. So they only get an hour of this training. We need to change the training to the way that you walk away self-aware of what your issues are, so you can change them, because you are going to be approached, whether it's an email, phone call, or direct. But I like this informational InfoSec. And Edward McCabe, I met him last year at DerbyCon, and I had a lot of conversations with him. He's a pen tester. But I love this. My 0 days are your employees. That's red teaming, that's pen testing. This is also espionage, spying. Same thing. Sophie Daniels, if you follow her on Twitter, she gives the keys to the kingdom. She tells you how she's doing what she's doing, and she's very good. And she's not trained like I was. She's a photographer and a mom. Come on. And she's doing a very good job. Now, the things that I have up here in red, can you guys see the stuff in red? I want to make sure. Can you read it in red? I need to change the color, don't I? Okay. She says she's doing is lock picking, climbing over walls, hopping barbed wire fences, dumpster diving, and getting to play with all sorts of cool gadgets. I'm also pretending to be something I'm not. That's what I was trained to do in counterintelligence. I did dumpster diving. I pretended to be something I wasn't to get somebody to tell me information. I would approach you and talk to you and get you to talk to me and see if you could give up the secrets. She's doing the exact same thing, and she's doing a very good job of it. I recommend you follow her. I'd recommend you watch this blog. I took that picture from her blog. It's very good. But she is doing the exact same thing that I was trained to do. Now, when I was in the Army, I'll tell you something. I had to sign a statement where I'd be willing to lie. I had to sign a sworn statement and give it to the government that said I'd be willing to lie. Because initially I thought, hey, they said, are you willing to lie? And I'm like, no, I'm a trustworthy person. I won't lie. And they're like, let's come talk. They pulled me to a room, took me to the side, and like, we need you to lie. Or if you can't lie, you can't do this job. And I'm like, whoa, I thought you wanted me to be trustworthy. Like, we do, but we need you to lie. Will you change your statement? And I said, yeah. And they're like, now write a sworn statement that says you're willing to lie for the safeguarding of this government in our country. Okay. Using social engineering because it's effective. And I'm going more on the aspects of face-to-face interaction more than I am some tool where you hit enter on the keyboard. I'm going where they're approaching you and they are talking to you. And it's effective. But when all else fails, if they can't get through your perimeter, they're going to show up. The pen tester is going to win. The spy espionage is going to win if you're not careful. And this is just a little history of social engineering, because I honestly believe that we're calling it social engineering. We're minimizing its impact by saying, I was social engineered. No, sweetheart, you were approached by a spy. You had espionage targeted at you, and you've got tradecraft that is as old as 17th century, 18th century, proven tradecraft that works, has proven to work. I'm dripping, sorry. And unfortunately, more likely you're not going to win. They're very good. That is their full-time job. That's your part-time job. Your full-time job is to, domain admin stuff, computers. I'm in front of a computer all day. I'm not talking to anybody. The spy pen tester, that is their full-time job. They're determined. They are more determined than you are. And a friend of mine said I needed to bring this up. She does third-party risk assessments. If you recognize this from last year, these two guys were talking high classified stuff outside of in a cafe with a New York Times reporter sitting nearby, overhearing their classified conversation, and he posted it. So what she was saying is that as a third-party assessor, when she goes and does third-party assessments, she doesn't just walk into the conference room. She walks around the building. She goes into the break room, sees what people are talking about, sees what's written on their walls. She's just doing a third-party assessment. She's not a pen tester, but she is walking around and she's listening to conversations, and she's like, this is just as volatile as anything else. They weren't paying attention. Familiarity breeds contempt. They forgot what they were doing, where they were, and what they were discussing. So in honor of her, I give you that. Espionage, been around, and this is what I found on the internet. 1793, I wasn't taught that. They didn't teach us that when I was in school. But espionage is the things, finding secrets out about your enemies and competitors. Pen testers. It looks like pen testing to me, but I call it espionage. And I don't call it social engineering because I don't want you to minimize the severity. If you're going to be fired over this, I'm calling it espionage. I got fired because I got espionage targeted, not because of social engineering. That's my bias. And here, CIA officer spying. He got caught with loads of cash in Shanghai. Bumbling nut. But he's CIA, man. He should have known better, right? Since the 13th century. I like this one, Subversion. Kaspersky, Russian background. You can take what you want out of that one. I personally don't trust anything over there. That's just because when I was brought up, Cold War, the enemy was always Russia, communist. It hasn't changed. It definitely hasn't changed when this occurred. NSA employee logs on his computer, brings home stuff. Now, this is a double whammy. He was doing espionage at the NSA, and then Russia was hacking his computer at home. I mean, how wonderful. Cached of information that they got from him. Subversion. I call it subversion. This is my favorite, Uber. If you guys remember Uber from last year, their issues. This quote, that was hilarious. He says, Tony West of the General Counsel tells his teams, if any of you are doing surveillance, competitive surveillance, what do you think that is? Stop it. We need to, we don't need that competitive advantage. That's what they were alluding it to. That's espionage, and they were using it as competitive advantage. That's not North Korea. That's not China. That's not Russia. That's just a United States company doing it to another United States company. Not a nation state. They spoke English. They got along. But I thought this was, I like this one. This is a good one. I don't know if you recognize this. Med Robotics. One day, this gentleman walked in with 3 laptops, about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, walked into the conference room, opened them up, started doing whatever. The president of the company walked by, and he's like, nobody's here, what's going on? So he walked in and he goes, what's going on? He goes, well, I'm here to see the vice president. And he goes, no, you're not, because he's on vacation. Oh, well, I'm here to see da-da-da-da. And he goes, no, you're not, because he's out of the country. oh, well, I'm here to see the CEO. And he goes, I'm the CEO, and you're not here to see me. That's when they realized he was a Chinese national. They had been approached by China to try and have them buy into their product, and they kept telling them no, so they went in to steal it. And this is where he said, his defense, I was struggling to accept the fact he was no longer brilliant. Now, that's a good line. And this is what I wanted you to see. If you guys remember this cartoon, you're a gazillion years old like I am. The old proven tradecraft is pretty much the same former GRU officer. They are still using things that worked forever. And as you'll see when I go over this, they're using the same main things that everybody falls for one way or another. We are in a new age of cyber. And if they can't get it through your network, they're going to show up. And it'll be a person. And it's probably going to be a beautiful young woman. I'm going to have to change this color. But this is something that I thought was very interesting. John Walker, I'll talk a little more about him and how he helped us out. But this is what the Russians were saying, why we spy. This helped us determine when you were willing to fight and when you were simply puffing up your cheeks. This is an aspect of spying that is often overlooked. Sometimes it is good that both sides know what the other is really doing. I was rather enlightened when I saw that. And I didn't realize, well, maybe we had stopped wars because we shared information with each other. As much as I don't like you sharing information with somebody else, I had to read you your rights when I found you. I had to get a sworn statement from you when you did that. But I have to admit that was kind of enlightening to me. North Korea, this is what he is saying. The warfare is about bullets and oil. Today it's about information. And that's what he was telling his commanders. North Korea, yes, they're doing what they're doing. A lot of it is cyber, but they are not above. Also, I've talked to some people in Japan. They have noticed North Korean women showing up over there, talking to them. Talking. And I wanted to show you this. Do you recognize these two gentlemen? You're old enough, everybody, right? Trust but verify is 1986. Don't trust and verify is 2017. And I'll change the date because I wrote this last year. But this is where we are today. And because of the information, how easy it is to get, don't trust and verify. And it's a hard world to be in because, unfortunately, we trust first. That is what we're brought up to do. And this goes against that. So this is what I'm going to cover now. This is what I want you to understand. The social engineering that we call social engineering is really espionage and spying and subversion. And like I said, it's directed against you. Just because of who you work for and because you're a domain admin, you have access or you have information. There is somebody right now, I've met her. She's beautiful. She's working her way through the cyber community. She is working her way through the cyber community. She meets one, and from him she meets the other. She is beautiful. She is Russian. What we're going to talk about is the main thing is mice. Money, ideology, coercion, which is sex, I will use that, and then ego. And these are the main four things that we were teaching everybody in the Army is why somebody would commit espionage or treason, if you want to call it that, or subversion against their company, or how these are the things that are going to be used against you as an individual. Or one of the reasons why you might decide, I'm going to give away my secrets. We'll cover some of that.
But I thought she really liked you.
She does, sweetheart. She does. Guys, I swear she does. But she also wants to know who your best friend is. And she's probably sending him pictures while you're out. I know she did that. She sent pictures while they were out on their getaway, while she was in the bathroom doing selfies, sending pictures to his best friend. And it so happened the two happened to share cameras, phones. I'm like, wait a minute, I reckon. And then they found out how many other people she was talking to. She's beautiful. You are not going to win. Beautiful. So anyway, this is Hall. I put this up here because I investigated somebody in the Army for the exact same thing. I charged him with espionage. I had to go to charge you and get a conviction with espionage. I want you to remember this because I'm going to bring it up. You have to give your information to a foreign country, friend or foe. Foreign country, friend or foe. Doesn't matter if we're at war with them, doesn't matter if we like them, doesn't matter if we love them. You give it to another country, you get charged with espionage. That's what I had to find. That's what I had to have a picture of to prove as evidence. I literally had to almost have you hand to hand. That's according to the rules I had to abide by. We'll bring this up when we come to some other entities. We clearly have them handing the information over, whatever. The sergeant, he was a warrant officer. He, according to this, he had to lie about the money. I had a wealthy aunt. He worked in signal intelligence his whole career. He had access to all the secret information, and he gave it away for money. The guy that I was investigating was the exact same thing, but I could not find his other half. I never had evidence of him passing it. He just had classified information all in his household goods, and he didn't know how it got there. Secret, clearly labeled secret. NSA showed up when I did the interrogation, and they were sitting behind the two-way mirror, and they translated everything that was on the disc. He had discs. And this is how old I am. We had the little 5. But he had these all in his household goods. And when his household goods, this was when I was stationed at Fort Hood, when the household goods showed up, we'd already been alerted from his losing unit that they thought he had that in there. And so we were there when they unloaded it. We got his permission to unpack it, and we found it. And I don't know how they got there. They packed my office, and they packed all of his classified information too. That's what he said. They packed my basement, and apparently there was classified information in his basement, and that got packed too. I don't know how it got there. I could never find the other half. So the charges against him got downgraded to mishandling classified information. They put him out of the Army. I was bummed. It took 4 months of my life not a whole lot, right? But I wanted to find something, but I could never. John Walker. You can thank him for what he did, that now you get the death penalty if you were charged with espionage. He got life in prison, and President Reagan said that was not enough, so he changed the law and said if you get charged with espionage and you're found guilty, you can get the death penalty. He got life in prison. He died in prison. His lavish spending, that's what they said got him in trouble. His wife turned him in 3 times to the FBI, and they didn't believe her. He recruited his son. His son joined the Navy too. He recruited his best friend. He tried to recruit his daughter as she was in the Army. She turned him in too. They didn't believe her. But his wife turned him in 3 times to the FBI. But they did a 60-minute interview with him while he was in jail. And they said, so what would you do differently now that you know this? He goes, I'd do it where I wouldn't get caught. No remorse. His ego is more ego, I think, than money, but he recruited his children, tried to recruit his children to do it. Aldrich Ames, he makes me sad, counterintelligence agent with the CIA. He married a Colombian spy, and Russia gave him a wedding gift when they got married because he was so good for them, what he did for them. How appreciative they were. Ideology. Now this is there's some more I'm coming up. This was enlightening. This after I got out of the Army. She was an analyst. She felt like what we were doing in Cuba was wrong, so she decided to give over information to kind of help their cause. She got charged with espionage, but because she was cooperative, they reduced the charge. She didn't have to serve any jail time. Lucky her. He's in jail for life. His wife got off, but both of them got charged for the same thing. They just happened to be, they didn't know they were both doing it for Cuba, But she got 6 years. He's in life. I want you to realize life in prison because you gave information to another country. Remember that. I know people that are still at Fort Leavenworth for giving information to another country. They are there to this day, and they've been there since the 90s. He got off, and he freely gave it away. We know he did it. He admits it. I don't have to really have a picture of you handing it off. I like her smirk. I love her name, Winters. She did the same thing. But they both, they did it because they felt like what we were doing was wrong. They needed we need to give it away. We need to help even the playing field. I don't know what's happened to her yet. I haven't seen anything that's happened to her. We all know what's happened to Bradley. Is she? Okay. And my favorite. I'm trying to. I know some people think he's a hero, but what I do, I would be reading him his rights. He'd be charged with espionage, and he would not get out. We have what he did. He freely admits it, and they go, we got it from him. How much more do you need? He's so good. But I had done nothing wrong. He signed statements when he took the job that I would safeguard classified information. He knew what he was doing. He cannot lie that I did not know what I was doing. He knows what he was doing. And this is where I'd be playing James Bond music, This is the best. This is the one that coercion, blackmail, sex, beautiful young women. It works. This is probably the one that's going to get most of you. And I'll give you a story in a minute. Well-behaved women seldom make history. Do you guys recognize her? Ann Chapman? She's a hero now in Russia. We took her out in 2010, her with about 9 others. There were a group of 10 spies. She was one of them. She was working her way. She was near Biden. He said he was going to miss her when she wasn't around anymore. I don't know what her relationship was with him. She's North Korean when they found her over in South Korea or Japan. Remember the women. And this was World War II. This is a real live sign that they handed out. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't just something they were playing with. This was stuff that worked. Honeypots. She's a beautiful young woman. I can't reiterate that enough. Shake and bake, spying. This is where Israel got somebody by using a woman named Cheryl or Cindy, got him to go to Italy, and they took him off to Israel to find out what he was doing. This is a friendly country to us, right? But honeypots. Hold on. Anna, this is the one. The oldest trick in the book never stops working. Spy agencies continue to use seduction as an effective method of espionage. This is a story that made me a little, oh my God. A pen test company was told to go get the user ID and password to the domain over in the server room. We want the domain admin's user ID and password. They knew who he was. They saw by his social media that he was recently married. His wife either was pregnant or just had a baby. And they noticed by what he was doing in social media that he liked the girls. So they had a beautiful woman on their pen test team. She was a lesbian. They asked her, would you be willing to coerce him, try and entrap him? She said, sure. So I'm not sure how long it took, but she was able to convince him to meet her at a hotel room. She was in the hotel room in sexy lingerie, so when they opened the door, when she walked in the room, her boss was out in the car taking a picture of it. Have a picture of her in the lingerie in the room. Now they have a picture of him walking to the door. They have a picture of him standing in the door with her in the room in her sexy lingerie. Picture stopped. Now she said at that point, I'm not going to do anything. And she left. Well, we don't care now. She left. We don't care about her leaving. So Then they approached him and they said, we want user ID and password of the domain. He goes, no. So the next day they sent him pictures of him standing in the doorway with her in sexy lingerie and said, well, tell your wife and your boss, give us the user ID and password. Okay. Pen test over. That's what they're doing. This, they're not hacking your network. They approached you. They figured out what your weakness was. They watched you. That's what I was taught to do as an agent. They're doing the exact same thing. You guys are facing, and we're all facing, a formidable foe. Not just a pen tester. These guys are determined. You're not going to win unless you're able to pay attention. It's not easy what you're facing. No means no more than once. Many times no. But that's what horrified me when I walked away from DerbyCon. That sat in my head. I was driving back home, and I'm like, oh my God, this is why I was an agent. This is why I'm in cyber now. This is what I feel like I need to impart to you guys. They are doing the same thing I was trained to do as an agent. And I was effective. And no, I didn't dress like that. I had Army BDUs, if you remember BDUs, camouflage uniform. I did wear civilian clothes where no one saw my rank. But that's all, and I was only approaching really Army people, not the German civilians. We did go talk to the Polizei, we did share. I wasn't wearing rank then, but no, did I ever wear that. But that's what they're wearing now. Lone Tree, he is serving still in prison for what he did. He was a Marine Corps security guard in the Soviet U.S. embassy in Soviet Russia. One day he was going home. A chance encounter on the train of another young woman. They started a relationship. And I don't know how he thought sharing the schematic plans of the embassy with her was beneficial, but he did. That embassy is so full of bugs, we had to go build another one. Because of what he shared with her, they filled every wall with bugs. And he if you read the story, he finally fessed up when they transferred him to Austria, and I guess his conscience got the better of him, and he finally goes, yeah, I kind of gave away the secrets to the embassy in the U.S. embassy in Russia. And they started sweeping it, and they said every wall, literally they had to go build a new embassy because of what he did. And he is serving life in prison. Hello? And this just happened last year. The Iranians, they're not above using, if you saw what was posted, they used another woman's image off of Facebook, and they pretended to be her, and they were contacting certain engineers with certain companies that dealt with certain things. And they were able to get them to click on links that installed ransomware and malware on their systems from her, who they thought was her. Ingenious, pretty good. It worked, unfortunately. My best one, Betrayus. Betrayus, right? So this one is my favorite, and she's first generation Lebanese. If you guys you've seen this one, you guys recognize what I'm talking about? She is the social liaison to MacDill Air Force Base. That is not official title. She is not paid for that job. She is first generation Lebanese. It's her and her twin sister. She has a really nice house. All, this general, that general, they all kind of socialize at her house. Well, Betrayus was having an affair with her, his biographer. She somehow or another figured out that she must be emailing him and started threatening her, leave my guy alone. Now, they're all married. What does that mean? So I mentioned that to somebody and they went, swingers. That's probably what was common, how they knew each other. We don't know. I don't know. I don't know that. But it's very interesting. He's married. And I'll come back there. I'm jealous. Crap. When I was an agent, I never had an agent do this with me. I never had another agent show me his abs. Damn it. You know, if I could do a do-over, I'm just saying, when I was in, this was not there. I didn't see any guys do that. But, a do-over. But she was emailing him thousands of emails, explicit emails. Both of them are married. He's married. She got jealous of her, threatened her. She goes, I'm being threatened by somebody. And she told him, which is this guy right here, told the sexy ab guy, he sent her sexy ab pictures. That's what I tell. And so he launched and told somebody, and then the investigation started, and it exposed him. The whole thing came apart. You remember that from last year? 2 years ago? Again, I'm upset. I feel slighted. I want to do over. But this is my favorite, and I was saying it last night in my head. Betray us. But I understand people think highly of him. I didn't serve under him. There are some people that I know that they know him as an individual, said he's a really great guy. But but yet, swingers. That's what I call it. And this is another. This is where I want the music from Aerosmith. The man dressed like a woman. That's a man. That's him. He had an affair with him for 19 years. Convinced him he'd born his child, that he had a child with him. And this is what started Madame Butterfly, this relationship. But he convinced him that he bore him a child. In 19 years, they were together. I read a story.
Some people are not so bright.
Some acts were not complete. He thought they were. That's what I read. I don't know. But what they were off and on, and what had happened is he got transferred, so got separated for 4 years. So he claimed during the 4 years, I birthed your child. So he never saw him pregnant, but what they did is they went and found a 4-year-old child out of a Chinese adoption, and that's what they presented as his child. And he believed it. He believed it. He believed it. He believed it. Ego. This is the one, the coercion, the sex, the women, whatever, that seems to be the biggest one that catches a lot of people. Now, women are not immune to this either. I understand after World War II, the East German government had a lot of spies with nothing to do, men. So they sent them to West Germany to intermingle with women over there. They married them, and there was a man-honey pot, and it worked. So the women in West Germany were marrying East German spies. But the ego is one. Walker had one of the bigger ones that I've seen, especially when he said, if I would do it again, I'd make sure to get caught. And Russia even said Walker had a huge ego, and that was probably his biggest downfall. It's their personalities. This is what Russia said about Walker. It's part of their personality not to listen to our warnings. They were telling him, tone it down. Quit spending so much of the money. Come on, you can't justify what you're spending the money on. You're raising red flags. Stop it. Walker, I know what I'm doing. And Russia, you don't know what you're doing, but you're paying me $1 gazillion. But he wanted to be the center of attention. And so money and ego is what brought down Walker. Robert Hansen, another one, it really hurts for me to see this. Because I have business cards that say some of that on there, and I'm like, damn, But he did it. He wasn't being recognized at work. So this is one way that he got recognition. I'm better than you. I can do this better than you. Look what I can do. And you didn't catch me. Well, they didn't. But he got away with it for a while. And I brought this one up. This is Britsex. This gentleman right here has gone through gazillions of millions of dollars in Britain. All this, and he had no money. When the Britain thing, Britsex was going on, all of a sudden he has gazillions of millions of dollars. He marries her, she's Russian. She had an affair with him so she could become a English national. He's been targeted by many East German women to get their citizenship, and he has relationships with them. And this is what I'm saying. They're all the long-legged, good-looking blondes, never older than 25, fluent in many languages and a higher education. The woman that I know that's doing it right now through our community, she's this. She fits this. And no, I won't show you who she is. Huh?
God bless them.
Ha! Yeah. But it works. But he married, they're now married, and now he's funding BRICS with his millions and gazillions of dollars, helping separate the country. I have no evidence that he is being backed by Russia. I thought it was very coincidental when I found her and him, and then I realized she's married to him. They now have 4 kids. But he's gone through, because he's been a millionaire, lost his money, and now he has a gazillionaire, and he's helping BRICS with his money to separate the country. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not after you. That's true. They are. And I just want you to realize it is you by yourself. It's not your company. Your company, when the pen tester went after that young man to get the user ID and password of the domain, his company wasn't there. It was by himself at the hotel room. They approached him at work, but his company wasn't protecting him. His company wasn't there going, don't do it, don't go in the room, don't go in the room. He was by himself. See that? Can you read that? You see the monkey now? This is, unfortunately, when I was in the Army and I gave this presentation, we would end it with, if you suspect any of this activity of going on, please come see me. Well, I'm not the FBI. I don't do that work anymore. So technically, if you suspect this activity is going on, you do need to call the FBI. And this is one thing, it could be a collection signal that something has started. Doesn't mean that you're the end result. That's what I was wanting to see out of this. And I had to change the colors. But don't talk to anybody about it, and unless you trust them. But if you really suspect that you're being targeted, you do need to call the FBI. I don't think you can tell your CISO. Unless you think there's a pen test going on. That might be the only thing, but I'd hope to seriousness that they would not do the same thing that other one did. But if that's the tactics pen testing companies are using, you are hosed. If they can't get into your network, and that's what they said when they were talking. How much time do I have? Oh, hey. But and when I was talking to the pen testers, like, if I can't get through your network, I'm coming and showing up. I'll be the fire inspector. You've heard the stories, right? I'll be the fire inspector. I'll be the building inspector. I might be the cleaning lady. I might, and they're not above using your weaknesses of your personality against you. I'm trying to get you to realize they sat there and studied you before they went and talked to you. And that spooks me a little bit to realize that, we're all sitting ducks, and my company is not aware that that's some of the, unless they told him that that's what they were, we're going to blackmail one of your employees with sexual deviance. Do you mind? Oh, sure, go ahead. Yeah, see if he'll show up at the hotel room with a woman in sexy lingerie. Let's see if it breaks up his marriage because you're doing a pen test. The company didn't care. Pen testing team didn't care. He said the reason why he did it is he wanted to show the company that you don't have any policies to help safeguard when something like that happens. They blackmailed a person, probably ruined his marriage. That to me was very serious. This is beyond social engineering. When you're going to jeopardize my marriage, you're going to jeopardize my job. This is more than social engineering. This is spying and espionage. I want to call it the hard words because you're using hard tactics against me. I'm calling it what it is. That's what I wanted you guys to get at.
have this saying that, you know, your attacker doesn't care what you say is in scope and not in scope. Right? So what would you do? Where do you draw that line? How does a company, how does an individual, how does a CISO draw that line? Where is the line? Because it sounds like it's a moral issue, right? So how do you teach morality to a bunch of people who did engineering, who've never taken a civics class in their lives, right?
Well, there you go.
Right? No, I mean, seriously, I mean, this is a huge gap in our industry.
Exactly. It seems like he would have cheated regardless if it was a spy or not. So.
But I'm just saying, that's, you know, in any of these examples, though, she's talking about the lengths that people will go to win that, and, you know, either whether it's an adversary or a pen test. At what point do we decide as red teamers and as blue teamers or CISO calling a pen test of, okay, here's what's in scope, here's what you can do and what you can't do. When, again, there's this ethos that red teamers like to say that, you know, the adversary doesn't care what's that in scope. Right?
Like the pen tester said, look at this. No one says no to this, and I swing both ways. That's what the pen tester said. If that's what it takes, I'll swing both ways. Now, he didn't say how far he would go, you know, to the act. But that's a good question. I mean, it does raise a moral question that we're probably not used to asking during a pen test. Chris Hagney, the one that was sponsoring the social engineering, he said that in his policies, when he's starting up a pen test with a company, if you fire employees, I will not come back and work for you again. He says, I tell you up front, I'll tell you my ground rules of acceptable behavior, of what I will do and what I expect you to do after the pen test is over. And because the pen testers literally were going, I know how to use that against you. Is it right for me to do that outside of a pen test? If you have something I want and I know your weakness, is it right for me to take it from you because I know how to bend you, right? And that was one of the ethical questions that they were asking each other at the Social Engineering Village. You know, how far do I go to bend my integrity or my ethics because I know I can get what I want from you? You've got something I want. One of them asked, he goes, I want an airline ticket. I want to be upgraded to first class. And so he said, I know how to get the ticket agent to do that. Is it wrong of me to do it when it's a personal flight? That was the question that they were asking. So back to your point, I think we're reaching to that point that at least Chris has been in the industry long enough to know he needs to put that in writing. This is what I will do and this is what I expect from you. If you fire employees because of what we're doing, I won't do this again for you. I think that's wrong. And I agree with that. It's a training issue. I think it's beyond security awareness issue. We got to change your behavior. We got to change a lot of things. But I applaud Chris for saying that because he was realizing what he was facing, and he's like, in my everyday activity, it's becoming second nature for me to abuse people's personalities because that's what I do every day. And that's what he said. If I go to the ticket agent, I know how to get a first-class ticket out of her. Is that wrong? When it's a personal flight. Any other? Yeah.
I wanted your take on the whole scenario of a Chinese venture capitalist providing DNA testing in way free, test to a kid's school, and then you log in and you look at the trace the money back. These are Chinese venture capitalist companies with military ties. The personal data, China plays the long game. How do you data mine this thing? Are you starting? Are we doing the same thing too? Are we trying to figure out my child is being spied or we're approaching? Is that kind of where the ball is going now?
That's what I think they're doing with the data. I think they're going to compromise people with the. I've said already, I can go get my birth certificate from China faster than I can from my county. They have got my OPM. They've got, you think about, back to your point, how much data they're collecting. It's not on a thumb drive. This is servers, data mining. They have got everything. That's what it looks like. I don't know for a fact. I just, right? But I do agree. I think that, yeah. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that I have a conspiracy theory that I think they're sharing it with others, Russia being one of them. Those two have a tenacious relationship, but they both have the same goals in mind in a lot of areas, so I think it behooves them to share it. Mm-hmm.
Is there any rumors that this whole new concept of deepfakes are now being used to compromise that? Deepfakes being really good digital manipulation of video and audio to effectively do or frame someone to something that actually video or
What's the question again?
is there any indication that deepfakes are starting to be used as a compromise method instead of putting people in the
Now, great, now you just gave everybody a whole bunch of ideas. Stop it. It would not be surprising, considering, if I didn't have a beautiful young woman on my pen test who wasn't willing to get into sexy lingerie and coerce the gentleman to show up to a hotel room with her, then yes, I will go and do that if that's what it's going to take. If I can't beat your network, I'm going to go another way to get, yes. Yeah.
I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, who might answer this, that a lot of Chinese companies are actually under the control and auspices of the Red Chinese military. Is that, do you know anything about that?
Not firsthand, no. I'm with you speculating on that. That in China, most things don't happen without the government knowing about it, and that means the military too.
Right. Well, I'm thinking more in terms of the scenario where the company is actually almost like a subsidiary, has military officers from the, from the armed forces, actually in key positions in these companies running things.
I've seen some stories about that, open source stories, nothing classified about that. So yes, I think North Korea is probably doing the same thing too. Huh? Oh. Thank you.